Welcome everybody to the 82nd Annual Kootenay Pitch Competition. I'm Sean Smillie. I'm the Executive Director of the Kootenay Association for Science and Technology. So CAS has been here since 1998. We offer a variety of programs, events, and resources to our tech and non-tech communities. Tonight I'm broadcasting to you from the Nelson Innovation Center. CAS manages this space. We're a flexible work hub. We have a boardroom that you can use, a Zoom booth. It's the perfect place to meet your clients. You can read more at nelsoninnovationcenter.com. Come check us out. So before we kick off this 32nd Annual Kootenay Pitch Competition, I'd like to thank our sponsors. First up is the Nelson District Credit Union, where I personally bank. Next up after that is Traction on Demand and, of course, Volition Advisors. I'd also like to thank all those that applied and those who are keeping the Kootenay tech spirit alive. Kootenay Tech right now is super thriving. We've got Thought Exchange, D-Pace, Traction on Demand, and then of course we have a large community of like remote workers, digital nomads, and entrepreneurial ski bums. So before we get going with the show, I'm going to grab a beer and then we're going to rock. All right, so this is how this show is going to play out tonight. We have 3 entrepreneurs who are going to pitch 7 judges. All these entrepreneurs are from the West Kootenays tonight. Next round, that happens in January, I'd like to see some talent from the East. So our competitors tonight, we have a unique tech startup on a mission to help cannabis craft growers. We have an 18-year-old who wants to help the world by dealing with plastic waste. And we have a father, inventor, climber, skier, and fisherman who's developed something unique for the fly fishing industry. Each of these contestants can have 10 minutes to pitch, followed by 10 minutes of Q&A from our judges. Our judges tonight all have diverse and exciting backgrounds, so pay attention to what they say. You're going to learn something. If you want to know more about these judges, just check out cas.com/KPC. Everything you need to know is there. So tonight's competitors, whoever wins is going to get the following: $500 in cash, free CAS membership, $400 value, 3 months free in our venture acceleration programs worth a whopping $600, and of course free entrance to the New Ventures BC competition, courtesy of New Ventures BC. So, our first contestant tonight, Sammy Majadla. He's the CEO and one of the founders of Certicraft. They're on a mission to help craft cannabis growers transition into and thrive within the new regulated market. They built the only compliance platform that fully digitizes and automates record-keeping requirements for cultivators. Now, apparently, Sammy has been doing all his work from Nelson, a place where tech workers hike alongside hippies, cannabis growers paddle alongside politicians, and nobody is friends on a power day. So, Sammy Majadla of Certicraft, you're up.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sammy. I'm the CEO of Certicraft, and I'm really excited to be here before you today. We are on a mission to help craft cannabis growers transition into and thrive within the new regulated market here in Canada. Now, as I'm sure you guys are aware, 2 years ago, Canada legalized cannabis for adult recreational use. What you might not know is that legalization has been a failure. And it's been a failure because the craft cannabis industry has not transitioned into the new regulated market. Now, craft cannabis is the highest quality cannabis in Canada, in the world even. It's the equivalent of craft beer or craft wine, and it's what consumers want. And consumers are proving that by with their purchases. Over 70% of the cannabis purchased in Canada today is being bought outside of the regulated framework. Now, these craft growers, they actually want to transition. They're the people who fought the government for years to legalize cannabis. And now that they've succeeded, it's just the regulations just don't make sense for small growers. It's too hard and too expensive to get licensed, too hard and too expensive to stay licensed. And so most people aren't transitioning despite wanting to. And additionally, the RCMP for the past couple of years, they've been cracking down real hard on small growers. And a lot of families are being broken up, children are being taken away from their parents, and despite that pressure, despite wanting to transition, it's just too hard. Now, it's not just growers that are affected by this. The government gets hurt too. For every single craft grower that doesn't transition, every single year, the government's losing out on about $800,000 on average in duties and sales tax. And of course, when a company goes from underground to legitimate, then there's additional corporate tax and income tax for every employee that's being lost out on as well. So we're talking about literal billions, literal tens of billions of dollars that the government's losing out on every single year because there's tens of thousands of these growers. And the solution is pretty simple. Make it easy. Make it easy for people to get licensed, make it easier for them to stay licensed, and make it easier for them to sell their cannabis at margins that make sense. And that's our mission at CertaCraft. We're here to help craft growers transition into and thrive within the new regulated framework, like I said at the beginning. Our first product is a compliance platform that makes it really easy for licensed craft growers to stay on top of their records and to stay audit ready. We've built the first solution in Canada that fully digitizes and automates all these requirements. It guides growers through their requirements, generates the monthly reports they need to submit to the government, and just makes their lives a lot easier. We save growers about up to $50,000 in setup fees, up to $50,000 a year annually in licensing fees, and every single month we're saving them many dozens of hours of busy work, and all of this saves them a whole bunch of stress and helps protect the huge investment they've put into getting a license. We've grown to 16 paying customers today with $7,500 in monthly recurring revenue right now. We additionally have 19 pre-orders, and a pre-order is a facility applying for a license who we've given a license application package to help them get a license from Health Canada. And in exchange for that, they're contractually committed to using CertaCraft for 1 year once they get their license. And if all of those customers were to get licensed today, we would be sitting at $18,000 in monthly recurring revenue. Now, we've done all this on a shoestring budget. We've grown entirely through word of mouth with a customer acquisition cost under $100, and we're closing over 60% of the leads coming into our sales funnel. So I think we're doing something right. And a big part of a big goal of our next 6 months is to put together a scalable sales engine so we can take this process and really grow our company with it. But I'll get more into that later. The last thing I want to bring up right now is that despite the craziness of COVID, we've managed to grow our revenue by over 400% since January. So we're feeling really excited about our momentum and look forward to keeping it going. So the system that we've built is commonly referred to as a seed to sale system. And this category of software is something that helps growers track their inventory and operations from the point at which they plant a seed into the ground until they grow that cannabis, harvest it, dry, cure, package it, and sell it. In this category of software, we actually do have quite a few competitors, but all of our competitors are focused on the needs of big corporations. We're the only company that's focused on the needs of small to medium businesses, and as we've expressed earlier, that's the majority of the market here in Canada. Additionally, lots of our competitors have software that looks like that. This makes no sense to farmers. It makes no sense to gardeners. And that's what growers are. They're farmers and gardeners. This was actually the initial motivation to create our platform. And we worked with growers for a year in 2018 to design something that actually did make sense for them. And the user experience that we've created is why we are closing 60% of our sales. Once people see our demo, it just clicks for them and they can't imagine using anything else, and that's usually what closes the sale for us. As for who we are and why we're the right team for this, my name is Sammy. I am the CEO of the project. I went to Harvard on a full scholarship where I got a degree in computer science. I've built 6 platforms over the past 10 years and started quite a few ventures, some of which have been failures, some of which have been successful, and all of which have led to a wealth of experience that puts me in a great position to lead this company today. Nick has a background in politics. He's been a medical cannabis advocate for many years, and he has a background in licensing, sales, and compliance in other regulated industries as well. And last but not least is Giles. He has a mechatronics engineering degree from UBC, and he's been building all of our IoT integrations and various hardware integrations to create a much better user experience for our customers. Now, as I mentioned earlier, our big goal over the next 6 months is to put together a scalable sales engine. We're part of 3 fantastic programs to help us with that goal. We're part of the Venture Acceleration Program here at CAST. We just had our first session with the CDL, the Creative Destruction Lab, and have 3 really kick-ass mentors helping us over the next 8 weeks. And we're also part of Rocket Builders, which is a 4-month program to help us put together and execute on a sales and marketing strategy, which brings us nicely to our sales roadmap. We finished our pilot project over the summer. That's when we decided to lift the limits on the number of customers that we had. Since then, we've grown to $7,500 in MRR, as I mentioned earlier. But the problem today is that we don't have a dedicated sales team. It's just Nick and myself doing sales, and with all our other responsibilities, we're spread really thin. And that, it makes us really sad. And so we want to hire a couple people to help us with putting together a proper dedicated sales team. And with that newer team, we're going to focus on taking our validated sales process and turning it into an actual scalable sales engine. We also want to launch a marketing campaign. And we've validated a good marketing strategy as well that we know works. And we want to make sure that we keep the top of our funnel full. Once we've done that, we're going to hire 2 more salespeople. And with that larger sales team, we're going to grow to 91 paying customers, at which point we'll be profitable with $80,000 in monthly recurring revenue. From a product perspective, our compliance platform is live right now. We want to hire 2 devs to help us build more features for that platform. We also want to hire a licensing expert to help us build an MVP that will generate all of the paperwork, which is many, many hundreds of documents that are needed in order to apply for a license. This isn't going to be a software-based system. It's going to be a manual digital system of sorts. And we're going to run a pilot project with that. Once we've validated all of that and we know it works and it brings a big difference for growers, then we will convert it into a DIY licensing platform, which we'll use to greatly increase the size of the legal craft market. And we expect most, if not all, of those customers to become customers of the compliance platform as well. Last but not least, in 2022 onwards, we look to launch a sales system, which will help bring much better margins to our customers by cutting out 2 to 3 different middlemen between craft growers and the consumers that are ultimately buying their products. So we're actually in a pretty great cash position right now. We have 31 months of burn with our current team, and we expect to be cash flow positive in about 4 months. But we really want to realize that roadmap that we just showed you. And to do that, we need an investment to help us make the hires that we need. And so we're looking for $750,000 in order to help us accelerate our growth and hit profitability next year. If you are an investor watching this and are interested in chatting more, there's my email. I would love to connect with you, and judges, I would love to know if you guys have any questions.
Thanks for that, Sammy. Now, without hesitation, we're going to move over to our panel of judges for our Q&A session. Each judge, or the judges, will have 10 minutes to ask their questions, and we are going to start off with Henry Kutarna.
Thanks very much. So, Sammy, my question is, are you vulnerable to government, change in the regulatory climate, or maybe the government becoming a competitor to you in your process and the government deciding that they want to do the process themselves? I'm curious about that.
Hey, can you guys hear me? I had weird stuff going on with my mic for a moment. Okay. The honest answer is yes, because if the government changed the regulations completely, then we're kind of screwed. But they're not going to do that. Any changes that take place are going to be incremental. There already have been a few changes, and we have been the company that's been most on top of reacting and building changes to our reporting mechanism to address those changes. And our system was built on the premise of making it really easy to adapt to new regulatory requirements. When we are ready to scale down to the US and expand that way, it'll be very little technical work for us to be ready for that. I know there's a second part to your question, and I don't remember what that part was.
I was just concerned if the government could possibly become a competitor to you by taking the process over itself.
Oh, no, they're not. They made it really clear they're not interested in that at all. The only way the government would become a competitor is if they made it easy for people to stay compliant. If they shifted to all you have to do is send your cannabis to a test, and as long as the tests pass and we know it's safe for human consumption, then you can sell it, which is what I think the regulation should have been. That's the only real company killer for us, so to speak, from the compliance platform perspective. But then the other things that we're trying to do
in terms of sales and everything become really, that becomes our focus. But they're not going to do that. The government's made it really clear that they're going to keep this hard.
Thanks, Sammy. Okay, now we're going to move on over to Tiffany.
Hi, Sammy. Congratulations. Thanks for your presentation. I was just curious if you could walk me through your price point. I saw a few different ratios there with your various different customers and your monthly revenue. And then, you know, you're thinking that you're going to be cash flow positive in 4 months. Are you having different price points for different levels of service or access?
So this slide here is showing what we're working towards. It's not where we're at right now. I'll say in, first, can you guys see my screen? Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll say in words where we're at right now, and then I'll explain how we're gonna grow to this. So right now, for a micro cultivator that gets licensed, so there's two different sizes of license type you can have as a cultivator. There's a micro, which is limited to 200 square meters of canopy space to grow their cannabis in, and there's a standard which doesn't have a limit. For micros right now who are licensed, we're charging $500 a month, 300 if they're using us in their license application process to get comfortable with SertaCraft. For standard customers, we're charging $1,300 a month, and once they're licensed, and $600 before they get licensed. Now, all this scales up with additional modules that we'll be releasing, and with growing customers, and for standards with growing canopy space. And that's what these targets are that we're hoping to hit over the next year or two. Does that answer your question enough, or is there more you want to know about that?
No, that's helpful. I only had seen one $100 entry fee, so I was just curious.
Oh, the $100 are customer acquisition cost.
Yeah.
We have very little expenditure on the sales and marketing side, and so that's what the $100 is. It's nothing to do with our customer base.
Great, thanks.
And I guess the last thing relevant to customers is there's a $500 or $1,000 activation fee for when they first start using us. That's not recurring.
Moving on, we're now going to go to Paul Broussard.
Caught me typing in my survey scoring card. Yeah, so thank you very much. I had mine are really two quick questions. You mentioned to Henry, you know, the government is doing this, doing that. I guess I want to tag on that and ask, are you talking to the government then? Like, do you have contact and context with them, and maybe even an opportunity to work with them closely, or be like the de facto certification platform?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, we're talking. So there's two main federal bodies that are relevant for compliance in the cannabis world. That they are the CRA and Health Canada, and we talked about, on a regular basis. A lot of the regulations can be interpreted in different ways. So anytime there is uncertainty, I am on calls with them to make sure that we're interpreting in the way that works for them. And it's been pretty collaborative. There's lots of back and forth of like, will this work for you guys? Oh, this is a bit challenging for this reason. Okay, how about this? And then, you know, we find something that works. We also have a lot of we have a relationship with the BC government because sales is managed more on a provincial level, whereas the production inventory compliance is at federal level. Now, to your second question, no, the government's made it clear on all levels that they refuse to have a preferred partner that they work with. They'd rather just be an open free market. You know, we'd love it if they were open to that, but they've made it clear that they would not consider that.
I had a really quick question, but it was more regarding IoT. I heard IoT in there somewhere, and I was wondering how that was. But if other people have more questions, that one's not as important.
Now we can follow through with that one. Paul, Sammy, did you get that?
Yep. So essentially, we have built something we call Sensor Center, which is a microcontroller that makes it very easy to read data from any internet-connected device and have that be translated into something that SertaCraft can talk. It facilitates bidirectional communication. The main use of it right now is scales. because there's a lot of things under compliance and that exist around scales, but any sensor theoretically, we have the capability of working with it. We've also built the first LLRP to HTTP system in the world. LLRP stands for low level reader protocol. It's the RFID language. We got a lot of shred money for that project actually. So we can do automated tracking of things as they move from room to room. And there's a lot more to come in that domain, but right now our focus is what do we need to keep people compliant in the easiest way possible. The next focus is how can we make their lives a lot easier beyond just the compliance piece that's necessary.
Great, thanks, Sammy. Okay, Beck, on to you with your questions.
Great, thanks. Hi, Sammy. You mentioned that you had a 60% close rate, which is phenomenal. What does the other 40% end up doing? And is there a risk of that growing as you scale?
Yeah, I mean, to say there's no risk would be a lie because I have no idea. You know, there might be, there might not be. So I'm not going to say there's no risk. I'll talk a bit about that 40% first. So first off, that includes all of our early sales, and we're just figuring out how to do sales. So there was a lot of failure earlier on as we kind of figured out our process. It also includes all of the larger producers that we work with that we've gone through the sales process with that are outside of our fund. So the vast majority of that 40% is larger producers that are not in our niche, but that we try with anyway, just to kind of learn and just make sure that we're on the right path, figure out like kind of where the boundary is between what our niche really is and our market segment really is versus things that are outside of that. Most of the people who don't end up using us don't use us because they want more of an ERP functionality. They want something that's got a lot more breadth, whereas we have depth. We have depth on the compliance side and on the things that are necessary for small to medium operations. Yeah, over the next bunch of months, like one of the objectives that the Creative Destruction Lab gave us is to start tracking much more fine-tuned metrics on our sales process so that we can have much better and much more informed strategies and funnels depending on the type of customer and where they come from and a bunch of different factors. Is that a sufficient answer?
Yeah, no, that's great. I guess it opened up a little bit of a different question. Knowing that your market is specifically craft, is there the future to go into those bigger producers, or is it you really want to stick within this market?
It's a great question, and the future is quite open. You know, there's lots of different directions we can go in. Like for a lot of those larger producers that want to use ERPs, the thing about ERPs is that they suck. The growers on those teams that are using them, they're wasting literally 30% of every single day on those ERP systems, just fighting software, trying to figure out how it even works. Like that screen that I showed you, that's from an actual ERP used in the actual cannabis industry by larger producers. And all these ERPs, they allow integration. So we could easily go to these large producers and be like, hey, we're going to charge you $10,000 a month. We're going to save you $40,000 a month. And that's a legitimate business case we can make. I'm glad you like that, Paul. But I think for us, you know, that's a possible direction. A different direction that's possible is we've actually built our technology to be adaptable to any regulated industry. We've built like 90% of our code base is industry agnostic. It's a general customer management system. It's logistics and workflow management system. That's the biggest part of our interface, the workflow management, to make that really easy. So a system to generate reports from the different things that you issue. It's a way to create invoices and make sales and all the various things that go into that. And then the part that applies it to cannabis is actually just one folder within our very, very big code base. So, you know, there's lots of other industries that have quite painful user experiences for their compliance software, such as the chemical industry, the food industry, lots of different agricultural industries, and that's an option too. And I guess, you know, we have built things to be very adaptable, and if we hit the point where we're like, you know what, we want to go bigger than this, then we have lots of doors we can go down depending on what makes sense at that point in time.
All right. Well, thank you, Sammy. Judges, thank you for your time. We've hit our time limit. Sammy, thanks for your excellent presentation. So what I want to do now is call out where we are tonight. So we're at the Nelson Innovation Center, a place that was only built because of a grassroots community effort. And I really want to thank everybody who is involved in that. I also want to call out our partners and our funders. So we have the City of Nelson, Community Futures, the RDCK, the Nelson Chamber, the Province of British Columbia, and CIDIT. We're pretty happy to be managing this place, so come check us out, NelsonInnovationCenter.com. So now on to contestant number 2. Miles Peterson, at just 18 years old, is the founder of Terracore Plastic Company. They're on a mission to directly remove plastic waste from communities around the world, decreasing the levels of hazardous microplastics on a global scale. Miles lives in Castlegar, a place that is, I find, typical of the Kootenays. One only needs to take a quick look around to understand this wild region and the people that live here. People like Miles, who create their own work, invent new jobs, and live out their dreams. And the best thing about Miles is he's got a smile like it belongs in a Pixar movie. Miles, take it away.
So about a year ago, I took a trip to India for my boss's wedding. And while I was there, I noticed how beautiful the country was. But what I also noticed was that no matter where I went, the country was covered in smog. So I asked him about this, and the response I got was absolutely appalling. The smog in India is not created by manufacturing or from automobiles. It's created because people there are so poor, they have to burn plastic to cook their food, heat their homes, and survive. I later found out that microplastics can cause neurodevelopmental delays in kids, just like lead, and I knew something had to be done. So that's why I started the Terracore Plastic Company. The Terracore Plastic Company is a plastic recycling and manufacturing company that is based out of Castlegar, with a factory being set up within the next month and a half. We'll be working on turning waste plastic into reusable plastic products while conducting research into chemical-based recycling of plastic to increase its molecular qualities as well. We'll be partnering with businesses to remove hazardous plastic waste from the environment and to provide them with a high-quality recycled product for less than what they would pay to get it from across seas. Terracore's goal is to become the world's largest chemically processed plastic producer while holding a large portion of the recycled product market. Terracore aims to decrease atmospheric CO2 levels and to increase the amount of plastic that gets recycled every year. If we were to look at the life cycle of plastic right now, once plastic resin is created and turned into a new product, a consumer or business would then use that product and discard of it. Now that product that's discarded would most likely be collected by a waste collection company. And if that's in Canada, it doesn't matter if it's recycled or not, or sent to a recycling facility, as 91% of plastic that we use ends up in the landfill. Only 9% of the plastic that we currently use legitimately ends up in new plastic product. That 91% that doesn't get recycled will end up either in the water supply or damage an environment. And that can kill animals and potentially even humans. But of course, there are solutions to these problems, and those solutions can be found on both local and international levels. Terracore would like to see that once that plastic product is used and discarded, it is then collected. That collected plastic can then either be directly turned into a reusable plastic product, or it can be chemically recycled into a resin that manufacturers can use to create high quality, virgin quality products for a lower price. Terracore's chemically recycled plastic can be sold for up to 40% less than virgin plastic, while providing high quality, uncolored product to manufacturers that would use it. Terracore's goal is to partner with businesses to not only provide them with a low cost alternative to what they currently use, but to also increase the amount that consumers and businesses participate in the recycling process. Terracore will also be able to provide plastic that's not based on unstable oil markets. Terracore's product line will include everything from reusable water bottles and phone cases up to building material and such as decking. Terracore will eventually, within the next few years, be able to offer a high-quality chemically recycled plastic resin for companies such as Coca-Cola and Pepsi to use to manufacture their water bottles. Now, the market overview for a product, for a business like this looks fantastic, and it actually could not be better. The public demand for reusability of products continues to increase. Well, currently 300 million tons of plastic is used every single year. That 300 million tons is projected to double within the next 20 years. And not counting for inflation, by 2040, the global plastic industry will be worth approximately $3.2 trillion Canadian. Now, the team to make this happen is run by myself. Currently, Terracore has a few employees who will begin working once the factory is set up. There are also half a dozen shareholders as well. Currently, we're supported by various local businesses, an ex-corporate executive, and the chair of the RDCK. Once Terracore begins its factory within the next month and a bit, we'll also begin production and sale of business-to-business and consumer products. At the same time, we'll start up a Kickstarter to sell and advertise our products on a local and international level. Once myself and my partners feel that the business has become profitable enough selling reusable products, we will begin selling equity to raise the capital to begin a larger factory in Alberta. This larger factory will be able to produce chemically processed resin using both plastic from the west and the east of the country. This plastic resin, manufactured in North America, would then be sold to various North American companies. As the demand for our resin and our various products increases, we will build various factories around the world to meet this demand. Now, the revenue model for a business like Terracore is fairly simple. Consumer products and business-to-business products will be sold for less than competitors' rates, as the cost of materials to produce these products are very low in comparison to virgin plastic resin. For local businesses, shipping costs around the Kootenays will be significantly lowered as well, providing an incentive to buy from the Kootenays and locally instead of from the United States or from the other side of the world. For our recycled plastic resin, 1 ton will sell for approximately $1,100 Canadian. That is less than current virgin plastic market rates, which will allow us to undercut our competitors in North America. Terracore currently has a pre-order of 200 water bottles, and multiple Kootenay businesses have approached us requesting some form of partnership, including waste collectors. All chemically recycled plastic resin sales in the future would be made in bulk, which would allow Terracore a significant influx of cash to expand its factory and production capabilities. As Terracore is already in the process of starting and opening a factory, we're currently looking for businesses who'd be interested in partnering with us to either sell our products or for them to use themselves. Our products will not only be 100% locally created, but they will be from 100% recycled plastic as well. We'll also be able to compete with overseas prices due to the cost of manufacturing here using recycled plastic. Thank you very much for your time and for allowing me the opportunity to present this.
Okay, thanks so much, Miles. Now, straight over to the judges. We're going to start with Sue Ross. Maybe not. Now we're going to start with Tyler Rice.
Thank you, Miles. Great presentation. With the onset of COVID, we see a lot of plexiglass being deployed in local businesses. Would the plastic resin that would be a byproduct or the result of your process be utilized in that capacity?
Potentially. Currently most plexiglass, or what we see around the area, is made from acrylic, right? We would not be recycling acrylic. Another factor that we need to consider when making products like the plexiglass and the barriers is the clarity and I guess how well we could see through it. And I don't believe that the recycled plastic resin would be able to provide that quality of clarity.
Thank you.
Thanks, Miles. Okay, let's give Sue Ross a chance to ask a question here.
Hi, Miles. Thanks for that great presentation. I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit more about your user acquisition strategy. So how are you going to go about getting those retail partners on board?
Okay, yeah, sure. So we'd be able to provide plastic, let's take a look at building materials. So decking, for example, we'd be able to provide that at rates that would be lower than what they currently pay for decking from companies such as Trex, for example. So it would make a lot of sense for them to switch to a company like Terracore.
Great. Let's move on to a question from Fiona, please. Oh, you're muted, Fiona.
Hi, Miles. Great presentation. Well done. Your company is very impressive. As a designer and a retailer, I'm really interested to know more about your products. I feel like you're sort of a 100-mile plastic company in the area, and I like that. I like the small closed loop that you're talking about to start off with. And do you have an in-house design team? How does that work for your products? Because the consumer these days is very sophisticated and they're looking for beautiful products. And can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so currently I've been doing all of the design for products that are simpler in nature, such as plastic decking. We'd be able to provide that with for similar quality because of the ease of making and designing these products. In the future, we will be looking to hire outside help and sourcing outside help to design products.
Great, thank you. Okay, Tiffany, let's hear from you.
Thanks, Miles. I was just curious, not knowing how the chemical process would work. If you're opening up a factory in Castlegar, is there going to be any fumes or anything? How are your neighbors going to feel about you setting up shop?
Yeah, fantastic question. And in Castlegar, we'd only be doing the processing as far as it relates to mechanical and heat processing. So that basically means that we'll only be making the reusable products here. We won't actually be doing any chemical recycling. And any fumes or smell coming off of our machinery would be minimal.
All right, let's go on over to you, Henry. Have you got a question for Miles?
Yes, thank you very much. So Miles, I'm really interested in the story you told at the beginning about the poor people that you saw burning plastics, creating toxic fumes and so on. In the end, is this your chemical process will make the rosin or the input to some other product chemically safer? Is that right? I didn't understand that, and that's a simple.
So the reason why I wanted to create this was so that we can eventually provide jobs to countries such as India, so that people there won't have to resort to burning this type of plastic.
Okay, good. That's the connection I was looking for. Thank you.
Yes, there we go.
Good.
All right, over to you, Beck.
Hi, Miles. In your presentation, you showed two different types of production lines. So one focused on reusable products and the other one of the production of resin. Mm-hmm. These feel like they might have two very distinct and different go-to-market strategies. One very much a B2C, one a B2B, maybe more so. Mm-hmm. What's your long-term goal? Like, it looked like you're looking to go into resin. Why not start that now?
I found that resin would be too complex and would require too much capital for what's available in the area. And I know currently within the area, talking to some local builders, that we need plastic sources or plastic products that we can use for, say, building homes. And that's the startup cost for making products such as that is significantly lower. So that's why we're starting there.
Thanks. Good to know.
Great. Okay. And finally, I'm going to turn it over to the very patient Paul Broussard.
That's what they call me. My middle name, in fact. So thanks. Mine are, again, probably really two quick questions. One is that I kind of viewed this almost as a two-sided marketplace in a sense, which sort of, but not exactly, but kind of. And two-sided marketplaces are notoriously hard to build, and because you have to stock the shelves and fill the aisles at the same time. So I heard a lot about the, let's call it the end consumer or end customer acquisition, and like businesses approaching you and all that stuff. And I know one part of me says, oh, it should be easy to get plastic because there's so much of it, so many people are throwing it away, blah, blah, blah. But I didn't actually hear anything about how you are going to acquire that plastic, because notoriously a lot of it is dirty plastic. It has to be cleaned, sorted. There's and dirty plastic is also defined as like plastics that aren't supposed to be introduced into the recycling, that aren't the right resin numbers, all that kind of stuff. So I guess I'd be curious to hear about like what that acquisition process looks like, because that seems very top heavy, and how that's going to happen. My second question was a quick one, which is I didn't hear an ask, so I was curious about that.
Oh, yes. So I'll start with the ask. So what our ask is our ask is targeted towards business owners. We'd like to see how Terracore will be able to decrease potentially your costs of shipping and cost of manufactured plastic materials that you're currently using by using a recycled alternative. And to answer the first question, I'll take an example of what we will be doing as soon as we start up. We've partnered with Doug's Disposal right now. So they will be providing us with waste plastic. They'll have their customers sort this plastic so that all of the plastic is separate from the waste. We'll be able to collect this plastic from them for a small fee, sort this plastic, which is labor intensive. And currently we have a large scale plastic washing machine being shipped right now from China. So then we'll be able to clean the plastic resins or plastic waste, sorry, using that machine. And then in the future, we can just expand that with other companies.
Thanks, Miles. So judges, we have 1 more minute left. Does anyone else have a last question for Miles? Great. Okay, Miles, thank you so much for your time and your excellent presentation. And judges, please get ready for the next round. So now, a quick word about our sponsors, Nelson and District Credit Union. This is where I bank, and I really appreciate all the customer service you guys give me. And to all you entrepreneurs out there, when you make your millions, right here, this is where you want to put it. Also, Traction on Demand, more than just a cool name. They're owned by Greg Malpass, who's a Nelson local. Really appreciate your community involvement sponsoring us tonight. All right, so now we're moving on to contestant number 3. Cam Shute is a passionate entrepreneur who uses an epic wilderness as the backdrop for testing Kootenay high-performance sustainable products for the outdoor industry. It's also his personal playground. After developing outdoor products for the last 20 years in the backcountry skiing industry, his new company, Dark Horse Innovations, has developed a high-performance sustainable product for the fly fishing industry. Basically, Cam is the exact person you want to know, and you want to be friends with this guy. His gear closet is obviously overflowing. He's a super nice guy, and you know everything in that closet is going to be of the highest quality. Cam, let's hear it.
All right. Thanks so much for having me. I hope tell you about who we are, where we all live, what we've made, more importantly, why we've done it, and how you can potentially help us. So the team in this venture is made up of 3 members. Peter Arlian in Carbondale, Colorado. He's the CEO of North America's only plant-based wax company in the ski industry. Myself, Cam Shute, based in Nelson, BC. I run a small product development consultancy called Dark Horse Innovations. And I've spent 18 years before that at G3 Genuine Guide Gear as a product developer, developing all manner of ski touring equipment and backcountry equipment. Last member is Seth Karlstrom, who's based in Bozeman, Montana. And he runs a small boutique studio called Height. They specialize in development of soft good, performance apparel and packs, and he serves the fly fishing industry. Both Seth and I are passionate anglers, and Peter is passionate about anything sustainable. So our journey really begins with a trip that Seth did to a river called the Big Hole River in Montana. Now, it's wild, it's pristine, and it's difficult to access. Fishing expeditions that go on the Big Hole only access the river via the river, so you have to take boats in there. And they do so because it's so wild. A testament to that is that it's the only river in the lower 48 states that still has Arctic grayling. Traditionally, there's been 2 populations of those fish, and the one that was in Michigan is now extinct. So it's the only opportunity to see those fish in the lower 48 states. He went on a dry fly fishing expedition there. So dry fly fishing is where the angler casts out their fly, and that fly, to be effective, has to float on the very surface of the water. And then the fish come up and strike the fly, and it's extremely exciting, and it's one of the most difficult forms of fly fishing. So one of the things that anglers do is they treat their flies with a bit of a waterproofing so that they float longer. And Seth had gone to his local fly shop and asked for the top of the line, the best performant fly floatant, they're called. And so they sold him a thing called Flyagra. And it turns out when he opened it on his trip, it smelled heavily of petrochemicals, and it turns out it's made of white gas and paraffin wax. And so he treated his fly, and on his first cast of his trip, where he's in this pristine wilderness, he cast it out, and splat on the river was a mini oil slick. Now, as soon as he saw that, he just recognized how wrong that was, and just like, most anglers care pretty deeply about their watershed, the health of the fish in the watershed, and so he realized that, you know, he wasn't the only one feeling this, and he thought, how can this be? How can the top recommendation be an unsustainable, unhealthy, and flammable product? So he realized that he had to do something about it, and he decided from that day he was going to try and find a better way. The problem, as he saw it, was that the top performance floatants are all petroleum-based and non-renewable. And then the top sustainable options, they don't last long, and they're not high performance. They kind of suck. So I was at a trade show in, I think, January 2016, and Seth recounted this story to me. And being someone who cares deeply about my watershed, the health of the fish, and the health of the humans also in the watershed, it hit me at my core, and I thought, oh, I have to devote some time in my life to help Seth with this problem. life happens, and I was a very busy person. And in March of 2020, two things happened. I left a job of 18 years, nothing to do with COVID, and COVID happened. So I was about to start a new company, and boom, all my contracts evaporated, and I had this gift of time to decide what to do with it. So I got in touch with Seth. It was one of those projects I had made a list, and I was like, I need to pursue this. I connected us then to Peter, who I knew had an awesome background in manufacturing sustainable waxes, and he actually was the first guy to start formulating the product. By the end of May and in early June, we had some baseline testing done. We knew how to objectively quantify performance. I'm an engineer, I typically do that. And by July 2020, we had gone through about 11 formulations. Most of them failed, but we had one eureka moment where Seth spent a full day fishing, treating his fly only once, which is kind of like the holy grail for floatants. And we knew we had something. So we shared it with a bit of a broader group of testers, including some fly fishing guides, and we did not have success. We had very variable results, and we couldn't quite understand it. So we went back to the drawing board, we identified our problem, and we reformulated and broke through, and we gave that product to the same group of testers, and we finally got the performance that we had seen early on. And in September of 2020, we submitted a patent application. So we're very proud to have developed what we're calling right now Forever Float, which is high performance and sustainably made. It's a bit of a gold standard in that no matter if it's a petroleum product or a sustainable product, it's leading in both categories. We feel that products of the future, the market is just going to demand performance always, but I think people in the future are also going to demand that things have to be made sustainably. To give you an idea of the size of this opportunity, fly fishing in North America is about $1 billion market. On the participation side of things, there's about 5 million anglers who participate in fly fishing, and a conservative estimate of the value of the floatant market in that market is $4 to $10 million per year. So our goal is to find a commercialization partner to help us launch this. We're hoping to access market with their support and make as big an impact as we can in solving this problem. We're able to offer both manufacturing and/or licensing, and we plan to do some direct sales in our local watersheds. We've pitched already to several iconic fly fishing brands, including Patagonia, who's most aligned with our vision. And they were very interested in testing our product. And the CEO of the fly fishing division told us in a very stern voice that we could not fail. He would support us in trying to launch this product, which touched us all. We were blown away with the support. We were shocked that they even wanted to sit down with us. So our ask to this group is to help us find a strategically aligned commercialization partner or distributor. We're hoping to launch this product in earnest in spring of 2021. And yeah, I just want to thank you all for your time, especially Karen for your time organizing this, and open the floor to any questions that you might have. Thanks so much.
Okay, thanks for that excellent presentation, Cam. Now I'm going to turn it over to the judges, and we're going to hear their questions. Let's kick it off with Fiona, please.
Hi, Cam. Great presentation. Well done. Very interesting product. I'm impressed. So you've applied for a patent, and my question is really simple. How long does that take? When will you have that? Because it sounds like something that needs to be patented.
Yeah, so we filed a US provisional patent, and it's not like a regular application. So we have 12 months essentially to find a commercialization partner before we have to file the formal patent.
Okay, that's good information. Yeah, I know about that. So that's great. Thank you.
No problem.
All right, let's turn it over to Henry, please.
Thank you very much. Cam, this is very interesting. So I'm really impressed that you are talking about finding a commercialization partner, and you're not trying to do this yourself, trying to globally market this thing by yourself. But my question is, how do you avoid then, I'm not trying to sneak advice in here either, but how do you avoid, if you find a commercialization partner, you may have to get into their catalog, so to speak, and therefore your product is going to be hidden away among hundreds or dozens of other products. And so what will you do to preserve the uniqueness of this while at the same time not trying to do a global distribution or marketing thing yourself? It's a bit tricky, so I'm just wondering what your thoughts are.
It is tricky. There's pros and cons. We are going to pursue, each of us, to promote it in our local markets, and who knows where it's going to go. That might go off. We may choose to do a Kickstarter in the spring, even just as a marketing exercise. And if it goes off, and if we're able to reach a large market, we may pursue it ourselves. I just know that from working in we sold about 400 SKUs at G3, and there's a lot of it. It's difficult to get into a wholesale stream with only one product. That's often a bigger barrier than it is an advantage.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah, and so really we looked at what we do best. I innovate, I make things, and I'm honest about it. And so I want to work with someone who kicks ass at selling and marketing things, because I know that's not my forte.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay.
Good.
Sorry, Henry, was there anything else you wanted to add?
I just want to say good, because you're keeping all your options open as you journey along this, and I think that's great. Thank you.
Thanks for your feedback as well.
All right, Tyler, do you have a question for Cam?
Yeah, thank you, Cam. Great presentation, great approach. I like what you're doing. As a fly fisherman myself, I'm very interested in the product. Have you thought about a bottom-up approach to accelerate the interest for commercialization? And the question comes from looking at the gatekeepers of the watersheds, and locally stream keepers comes to mind, or on a larger basis, the Pacific Salmon Foundation, and have a grassroots push to mandate industry change or no use of petroleum products on the rivers?
Could you just tell me what you mean by bottom up? Like a grassroots, start a grassroots movement? Is that what you're talking about?
Have the regulation, a push to have the regulations enacted that we're not using a petroleum-based product on flies in the rivers, and have it from an enforcement perspective.
That's an awesome idea. I hadn't considered that, and thank you for the idea.
Good luck. Thank you.
All right. Okay, let's move on to a question from Sue.
Hey Cam, thanks for that awesome presentation. I love the story. Painted a really great kind of like heartrending picture at the beginning, which clearly articulated the problem. How does your product compare in terms of MSRP compared to to your main competitors that are petroleum based?
We can compete head to head. And actually, I looked over our projected margins to start. We actually have a fair bit of margin advantage to us. So we don't have to position it at an exorbitant price. Like a lot of sustainable products, you have to pay more. It just doesn't work. We have a simple enough formula that we can go toe to toe and still make a healthy margin. So we plan to position it just a little bit higher than the leading petroleum product, because we feel that there is more value there. It's made the right way, and it beats it on performance as well. Thank you.
All right, now I'm going to turn it over to Traction on Demand, one of our sponsors. Beck, what's your question for Cam?
Hi, Cam. Thanks for running us through that. For someone who knows nothing about fishing, you made it really easy to understand. In your presentation, you talked about leading in both categories, so performance and sustainability. I'm curious about the process that went into validating that. So what are the tests and kind of things that you need to make sure that you can put that assertion out into the market?
Great question. And I come from an engineering background, and one of my professors told me that if you want to talk about something, you have to measure it. So that's a foundation of what we did. So we developed a series of lab tests that we would do. Basically, I won't get into the details, but we would do repeated trials of treating a fly. Some of it was drop tests from consistent heights with a consistent fly and a consistent temperature, and we would go through and characterize performance there. That's a lab test, but we also know that it's super important to test your product in the field. So I fished a ton over COVID. It was a great physically distancing activity, and we had the time to do that. On the sustainability side, Peter, who runs a plant-based wax company, was an incredible resource in terms of looking at all the ingredients, going to the TSCA list of approved chemicals that you can use, and he really helped us focus on making sure we didn't choose anything that was remotely bad. Because of that, he's already a third-party approved vendor for Patagonia, and they have a very strict vetting process. So we were trying to piggyback on established norms and vendor selection.
Thanks for that. Super interesting.
No problem.
All right, I think we have time for another question. So I'm going to pick on Tiffany.
Thanks, Cam. Yeah, I'm also not a fisher, so it was very interesting. I was just curious, and you kind of started to address it in your answer to the last question, but how will you know, so if I'm understanding correctly, your ask is you want help in finding a commercialization partner. How will you know when you've found the right partner? What are you looking for? So you talked a little bit about the the vetting processes that Patagonia has, but are there certain values that you're going to be looking at? How rapid they can get the product out? Just curious what will be your criteria?
You're kind of nailing what it is, and so what we would like first and foremost is that the organization's vision is aligned with our vision. Patagonia is probably the best brand out there for that criteria. They may not be the best brand though for these types of products. They're mostly a soft good company. They're an apparel and bag brand. So what we're hoping is that, maybe they just connect us to one of their friends that would be better positioned to sell that type of product. So for me, it's about market access, how many people we can get this product into their hands, because that essentially displaces the nastiness of the petroleum products on the market. That's the most important thing to me, and I think the brands that would be most interested in pursuing that, they would have to care about sustainability, health of watersheds, health of fish populations.
Nothing about the financial part of it?
Oh, don't get me wrong. I just believe that the financial side of things in business is more of a byproduct of doing it right, making a product that serves people and serves them well. And I think the money will come. I'm interested in that as well, but it doesn't drive me.
Thank you.
All right, so if there's no further questions from the judges, then Cam, I want to thank you for your excellent presentation and everything you're doing, and judges, thank you for your time. All right, one last thank you tonight to our sponsors and our judges. I want to thank you for all your time and effort. And applications are now in for the Kootenay Pitch Competition event number 2. They're due December 14th, and the actual event's going to take place on Thursday, January 28th. Get those applications in. So, big thank you to the competitors tonight. We know how much time and effort this took. You guys all killed it, and now we're going to announce the winner. So again, thank you, and the winner is Sammy from Certicraft.
Thank you. That's awesome.
Congratulations. Any last words you want to say now that you know that you've won?
Thank you, judges. Thank you, cast. This was an awesome experience. Thank you, Paul, for your help in preparing our pitches. Your masterclass was awesome, and I'm sure the other contestants also appreciated your help with that. And yeah, I'm just excited to try to actually raise that capital. And if any investors out there are hearing this and we're interested in the pitch and what we have to offer, we would love to talk to you.
Great. Thanks for your participation. That was an awesome night. Way to go, Sammy. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Sean.
Cheers.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We really appreciate you supporting Kootenay Tech. All right, applications are due December 14th for the Kootenay Pitch Competition, round 2. Thanks a lot. Have a good night. Stay safe. Shop local. Come here, Bandit. Come here. Treat. Yeah. Who's a good girl? Who's a good girl? Yeah. Good girl. Good dog. Who's a good girl? Who's a good girl?